What's going on, guys? It's Greg here. This is going to be part 3 of the How to Build a Get Home Bag series. And I'm going to talk about nutrition in this part because I think nutrition is something that's overlooked by a lot of preppers when they build their get home bags. They focus heavily on gear and ammo and weapons and stuff like that, but they neglect the most important thing, which is your nutrition. You know, if you're not properly fed and you don't have proper, it's not even just calories, but you need to have proper nutrition. If you don't have the proper nutrition, you're not going to perform well. So you're going to want to have high quality calories. You don't just want to have like empty calories. You're going to want to have high quality calories that are going to give your body the nutrients that it needs to perform at a peak level. Now, what I have a special qualification in this area because I've been powerlifting and bodybuilding for probably, more than half of my life, so, and I competed for many years, and I understand a lot about, how to eat properly to achieve maximum performance as far as, being able to train hard, being able to compete at peak efficiency. So I have a lot of knowledge in this area and practical experience in my life, so I can tell you guys what'll really work and what's not going to work. So the first thing I'll start with is you're going to want to have in your get home bag, you're going to want to have at least 2,000 calories. 2,000 calories is really not that much, but if you really ration it, this will last you at least a day or two, at least probably 2 days. If you're hiking and you're moving, let's say you live 50 miles away from your job, let's say you're commuting 50 miles away or 70 miles away, even 2,000 calories it'll be enough for you to escape the city. That those first critical few hours, if there's like some type of a SHTF situation, a disaster, whatever, the first probably 6 hours is critical. Those are the first few hours where you're going to want to quickly escape from the city, and that's where you're going to need some snacks. You're going to need at least 2,000 calories, and that's in the winter time. It's your requirement for nutrition is going to go up because your body has to burn more calories to maintain body heat. So this could easily double or triple for the winter time, and also depending on your distance, how far away you are. If you're only working 10 miles away from your house, you may only need 1 or 2 Cliff Bars, but if you're beyond 20, 30 miles, you're going to want at least 2,000 calories. And then if you're going beyond that, if 60, 70 miles, you're looking at 2 days of walking depending on physical conditions. So you're going to want to pack even more calories, 4,000 to 6,000. And then, you got to remember too that you're not going to be able to pack everything that you need to eat inside of your get home bag. You're going to have to find food along the way. And whether that means, in the early part of a SHTF situation, there's still going to be some businesses open, so you may be able to buy snacks along the way. That's why cash is important, because if, let's say, there's an EMP or some type of situation where electricity is not working, let's say it's a natural disaster, whatever the situation is, that electricity is not working, the gas stations, they're not going to be processing credit cards, but they will take cash, So, you want to always have some cash in your get-home bag. This way, if, let's say, you're on the way home and you run into a gas station, or, there may be some small stores open, convenience stores, you could replenish your food requirements at those stores. Now, that may not always be available to everybody depending on, a variety of factors. So you may also have to hunt. You may have to scavenge. You could find roadkill. If the roadkill is fresh, you can cook it up and eat it. But generally speaking, you don't want to pack a lot of food that you're going to have to cook or warm up, because a get-home situation, time is critical. You want to get home as quickly as possible and get away from the danger zone. You don't necessarily have to get home, but the key is getting away from the danger zone. You know, the danger zone, if you work in a city, the danger zone is going to be the downtown area. That's the target of nuclear attacks, that's the target of terrorist attacks. You know, that's where you're going to have the densest population center. You know, that's where you're going to have your least prepared people. That's where you're going to have the least amount of natural resources and, you know, least amount of food and water that's easily available to people. So you're going to want to get away from the city as quickly as possible, and any kind of large population clusters, you're going to want to move away from that as fast as you can. So, you know, you have to keep in mind that nutrition is going to allow you to do that, because if you're not properly nourished, you're not going to have the energy, you're not going to have the stamina, you're not going to have the strength to be able to, you know, escape from the city or escape from the danger zone. You're not going to have the strength to defend yourself. You're not going to have the strength to, you know, cover long distances with a backpack on. So nutrition is critical, and you have to have proper nutrition so you can perform at 110%, you know. So after we get our calories here, let's move on to the first thing that I think is very critical, and that's electrolytes. When you're going to be in a get home situation or a get out of Dodge situation, I'm going to call it get out of Dodge because I think that's a little better. A get out of Dodge situation, electrolytes are critical because you're going to lose these very quickly. You know, you're going to sweat, you're going to urinate, you're going to, you know, your vapor from breathing, you're losing every time you sweat and you urinate. Your body is excreting critical minerals that your body needs to maintain water balance and to maintain proper heart function, to maintain proper muscular function. So, you know, generally your electrolytes are going to be sodium. Sodium and potassium are the big ones. All right, sodium and potassium, and also magnesium and chlorine. Chlorine is anything that calcium is also another one. So hold on, let me write these down. Calcium. So you got sodium, calcium, potassium. I believe magnesium is Mg, and then I think it's chlorine. I don't know. I have to double check on that one, but just remember these four are critical: sodium, calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Of all four of these, you're going to lose your sodium the most, and then you're going to lose potassium, followed by magnesium and calcium. Calcium can stay in your blood for quite a while. It'll stay in your blood for 2-3 days. You know, it's going to sit there for a while. But all of these minerals here are critical for proper functioning of your heart. If you have too much or too little, it's going to affect the way your heart beats, and it could be fatal. But I mean, that's in extreme situations. But if we're talking about, you know, a get out of Dodge situation, these minerals, if you have a short supply of these minerals, what's going to happen is you're going to have cramps, you're going to have weakness, you're going to have fatigue. You know, there's going to be a lot of problems that you're going to have, circulation problems. Your strength is going to be off, your stamina. So these minerals here are critical. All right, these are critical. If you don't have these in your body, you're going to have a lot of problems. It doesn't matter what else you have. You could have, you know, you could have just killed a big deer and you could be feasting on it on some back straps. But if you don't have your sodium, your calcium, your magnesium, and your potassium, especially these two, these are probably the most critical right here. Sodium and potassium are your most critical, more so than magnesium and more so than calcium. These are going to be critical. So what you're going to want to do, and I'll show you what I have in my food kit, but I have some electrolyte powders, and the electrolyte powders have salt and potassium. And the problem with electrolytes is that they're hard to find from your environment. You know, if you're going to be scavenging for food, let's say you're going to be hunting or something like that, you know, meat generally does not have electrolytes in it. Generally, meat does not have electrolytes. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. So now the only other way you could get electrolytes from your environment is from fruits and nuts. You know, fruits and nuts have electrolytes. They have calcium, they have magnesium, they have all these. Also groundwater. When you get your water, depending on where your water is coming from, groundwater sources are generally going to have a lot of minerals in them because they come from the ground. So if you could get yourself groundwater sources, that's obviously better than like rainwater or stream water, which generally has less minerals in it. Some other sources of potassium, any type of fruits that you find, berries, any type of natural edibles, wild edibles, they're going to definitely have potassium. If you're talking about like berries, if it's in the summertime, any type of nuts like acorns, they're all going to have some minerals. So your wild edibles are going to have minerals, but they're not going to have as much. So as much as like what you could obtain from some electrolyte powders. So for electrolytes, I recommend getting yourself either some pills or some powders that you can drink, mix into your water. And the most critical is your salt, your sodium, and your potassium, because these you're going to excrete the most when you're sweating and when you urinate. You're going to excrete these two the most. Magnesium and calcium are also important, but you're not going to lose these as quickly, and they don't have as dramatic effect as salt and potassium. So just keep that in mind. So you're going to want to pick, when you pick your foods, you want to look for foods that have a lot of electrolytes, especially these two right here, sodium and potassium. Now when I pick my survival foods for my backpacks, I look at that. I look at the nutrition content, That's another thing. When you're buying your survival food, you always want to look at what type of nutrition is in it. Don't just buy anything, Don't just put like a Snickers bar in there or something like that, because a Snickers bar, it gives you empty calories. There's not much nutrition in there. It just gives you sugars and fats and all that. But if you could buy, let's say, a power bar or some other type of sports bar that's going to actually be fortified with nutrients and electrolytes, that's going to be your better choice, and I'll show you my stuff quickly so you could understand. So then moving on from electrolytes, you're going to want to go to your micronutrients are also critical, because micronutrients are generally hard to obtain from the environment. So if things like vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin E, stuff like that. But I think your big ones are going to be your big ones that you're going to lose the quickest are going to be your water soluble vitamins like vitamin C, and then also you got your vitamin D. But vitamin D, you can obtain that from the sun, so I'm not really going to write that. But vitamin C, you're going to lose that quickly. So you're gonna want to make sure that you have vitamin C inside of your get home bag. See, because human beings and primates are the only animals that don't produce vitamin C in our bodies. We have to obtain it from the environment, and vitamin C is critical. It's not just for your immune system; it's for your joints, your collagen production. If you want to learn about vitamin C deficiency and what happens, you could just look up the old sailors in the 1800s. They would just bring like dried meat over when they would try to, like the Christopher Columbus days, in the 1400s or whatever. They would put mostly like dried meats inside of the ships, and they would go over the Atlantic to try to explore, the New World. And it would take them, let's say, it may take them like, several months to get there because they only had sailboats at that time. So it may take 1 or 2 months to get to the New World. And they didn't understand the problems with not having enough vitamin C. And all of those people, they ended up getting scurvy. Scurvy is, very bad. You don't want scurvy. Scurvy is definitely bad. Then another thing is vitamin D is critical. Vitamin A. If you don't get vitamin A, you can get night blindness. And vitamin D, you can get rickets. If you don't have enough vitamin D is important for many things, but you can get rickets. Your bones can get deformed because your bones are not going to absorb the calcium. and your bones will get deformed. So you definitely don't want that. And then vitamin A, if you don't have enough vitamin A, you can get night blindness. And what night blindness is, basically just you can't see at night, because vitamin A is responsible for your night vision, you know. So, you know, you're generally going to want to focus on these three things, especially vitamin C, because you're going to lose these the fastest. Vitamin D and vitamin A, first of all, vitamin D you can obtain from the sun, so you can always go out in the sun and get vitamin D that way. However, depending on your latitude, you know, the further north you go and the further in the winter, you're not. So sorry about that, guys. I got interrupted for a second. So with the vitamin D, as you go further north in latitude, you're going to have more difficulty obtaining vitamin D from the sun, because there's not enough. The sun is not as strong the further north you go. Same thing in the winter time. It's going to be difficult to obtain vitamin D, you know, because the sun is at a very low angle, and plus if it's cold outside, you're not going to really want to strip down, and you're not going to really want to take all your clothes off just to get some sunlight. So pack some vitamin D also. And these are fat soluble. So these vitamins are stored in your fat. So it takes a longer time for them to exit your body than vitamin D. Vitamin D is water soluble, which means that it typically stays inside of your bloodstream. And once your body uses it up, and that's it, it's gone. But vitamin D, you can store it in your fat cells. If you have an excess, your body will store it. It'll hoard it, you know. So your body will hoard these two inside of your fat cells. So these are not as critical, but you're still going to want to put some of these in your food kit. And your vitamin C is going to be the most critical, because you'll lose that fast. You know, if you don't have any fruits for like 2 days, your vitamin C will basically be out of your body. So what I do is I have multivitamins, I have vitamin D and vitamin C, and I keep it inside a little capsule. So you're going to want to have your multivitamins, and because you don't know how long you're going to be out there, you know, in a get out of Dodge situation, you don't know how long you're going to be there. You may be there, it may take you 1 or 2 days to get home, you know, or it may take you 1 or 2 weeks, you know. It really depends on the situation, you know. If there's a lot of threats out there, and you know, I think a lot of the mistake that preppers make is they think that they're just going to be able to walk home in like 1 or 2 days, you know, and that's not realistic, because it's going to take time for you to cover certain types of terrain, specifically urban and suburban terrain. It's going to be very slow moving through that type of terrain, because you're going to have to look out for threats. You're not just going to be able to, you know, walk down the street. You know, depending on, you know, what part of the city you're in, but, you know, so it may take you longer to get home than you anticipate. You know, most guys think it's going to, oh yeah, I'm going to get home in 1 to 3 days, but you don't know that. You know, it depends on what type of SHTF situation it is. You know, you don't know, it may take you 1 to 3 weeks, you know, so you want to prepare for that, because you can always obtain food from your environment. Your macronutrients, you can always obtain them from your environment, but micronutrients and electrolytes are going to be harder. These two right here are going to be harder to obtain from the environment, either from hunting, scavenging, fishing, or whatever. These two are going to be much harder to obtain from your environment than your macronutrients are going to be relatively easy to obtain, you know. So that's why you want to have these two inside of your bug out bag or your get home bag or whatever. You know, you're going to want to have at least 1 to 2 weeks of supply of these, you know, at least 1 to 2 weeks. Maybe not the electrolytes 1 to 2 weeks, because that's hard to pack that much, but at least a few days worth of electrolytes and 1 to 2 weeks worth of multivitamins and vitamins and minerals. You know, this way you want to plan, because you don't know how long it's going to take you. It depends on what type of situation we're talking about, you know, so you want to plan for that, because macronutrients, you can get those from your environment. They're easy to obtain, you know. So the final thing is macronutrients. Macronutrients is your protein, fat, and carbohydrates. I would say of all three of those, the carbs are going to be the most critical, because carbohydrates is what your body uses for energy. You know, and in a SHTF situation, or a get out of Dodge, where you have to escape from a city or escape from a certain danger zone or get home, you're going to need energy. You know, you're going to need carbohydrates. You're going to need energy, because if you have to move 60 miles or 30 miles or 20 miles, you know, your body's going to burn up sugars very quickly. So you're going to want to have a lot of carbs inside of your you know, your get home bag. You know, you don't want to overdo it with the protein. Protein is much easier to obtain from the environment than carbs. You know, if you look at like the natural world, carbs are hard to obtain. You know, your sources of carbs are generally going to be, you know, fruits and stuff like that, berries, you know, and depending on the time of the year, it's going to be hard to find them. And, you know, realistically, in a get home situation, you're not going to really want to be walking around picking berries, you know. So just pack some energy bars, like power bars, Cliff bars, you know, sports bars, anything that has a lot of carbs. You're going to want carbs. You're going to want some protein as well, but you don't need too much protein, because you know, you don't really need that much protein. If we're talking about a short-term situation, you're not going to need an excessive amount of protein, because protein is very easy to obtain from your environment. You know, you can easily catch a squirrel, you can easily catch a fish, you know, whatever. You can find some roadkill, whatever it is. Protein is easy to obtain, you know, much easier than carbs. So you're going to want to pack more carbs. You know, I would say if I had to do it, I would do like, you know, mine is set up as such as that I have like 60% carbs, 20% protein, and maybe, let me see, let me change that. Hold on, what do I have? I have probably about, I probably have about, let's see, maybe 40% carbs, 20% protein, and 40% fat, maybe. No, actually, it's probably more like 30% protein and 30% fat. That's probably more what I have it. So I have 40% carbs, 30% protein, and 30% fat. That's the ratio that I have. Your fats are not going to be as important. This could even go down if we're talking about summertime. This could even go down. You know, this could go down to like 10% or 20%. This is the ratio. This is how much of the ratio of how many, the proportion of the different macronutrients in your get out of Dodge bag. Now, and this is for me right now in the winter. I have 40% carbs, 30% protein, and 30% fat. But in the summertime, this can go down to 10 or 20%, and then I can increase my protein and my carbs. You know, because you're not going to need that much fat in the summertime, because in the summertime, you know, you need fat in the winter to keep yourself warm, and and you need calories in the winter to keep your basal metabolic rate high, so you can stay warm and keep your body warm, you know. So your fats are more important in the winter than they are in the summer. So just remember that you want to pack a lot of carbs. You're going to want some protein, and in the winter you're going to want some fats, you know, to keep yourself warm and to keep your body temperature high, because when your body burns fats, it raises your body temperature. You know, I know, like, after I eat like a big meal that's very fatty and has a lot of starch, I get really hot. I start sweating, and I could even go outside in like 15-degree weather with a t-shirt on, and I feel hot, you know. So when you eat dense foods, your body temperature goes up. It's like firewood, you know. So in the wintertime, you're going to want to have more fats than in the summer. In the summer, you probably only need 10 or 20% of your food is going to be fats. So I'm going to go into what I have quickly so you can see what I have. I'll give you an example. I'm going to dump everything out. I got these Metrex Big 100 bars, and each one of them has 28 grams of protein, which is basically like a chicken breast. And they have all the micronutrients in them. They're fortified with micronutrients. And as you see, they have a lot of potassium here. They have Let's see if I can focus the camera. They have 550 milligrams per bar, 16%. Potassium and sodium, it's kind of on the lower side, but that's still pretty good. 160 milligrams. Calories 360. So each one of these bars, and I don't need to cook this. I can just tear this open and eat it, and this is going to be like a meal for me. So in a get out of Dodge situation, this is a quick meal, you know. So I got 6 of these, and that fulfills my 2,000 calorie requirement. Now in the winter time, right now in the winter time, I have a jar of Skippy natural peanut butter just for extra calories, because that jar of peanut butter is going to give me 2,500 calories, and it's quick calories, you know. But in the summertime, I'm just going to have these bars. This is it for me. This is all I need in the summer. In the summertime, I really don't burn that many calories in the summertime. So this will be it for me. This is 6 bars times 360 each. That's going to be right around 2,000 calories. That fulfills my 2,000 calorie requirement. And then in the winter time, I add a jar of peanut butter for another 2,500 calories. So here are my electrolytes. These are these drink mixes here. I just have 4 of them. You know, I have a couple more, but you know, I have those bars. They have a lot of electrolytes in them, but this is the liquid IV hydration multiplier. You know, each one of these has like, I think it's like 500 milligrams of potassium in it. 370 milligrams of potassium and 500 milligrams of sodium. So it has a lot of sodium. So I just have 4 of these. I may actually put some more in here. I may augment it a little and put like 2 or 3 more. And then I have some of these emergencies. I have 3 of them, 3 emergencies. You know, with these packets here. You know, they have a lot of vitamin C in them, and they also have some electrolytes and B vitamins as well. So you know, these are very good. And then in here, in this one, this little container here, I have all my multivitamins, vitamin C and vitamin D, enough for 2 weeks. You know, so I have probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 pills in here, and this will last me for, you know, if I took 1 pill a day, this would last me 2 weeks. So that's basically my my food kit. You know, I got some military can openers in here, disposable can openers, but you can really reuse them. And then I just have this steel spork. So that's basically it, guys. I hope this video inspires you, and you know, I hope it educates you. I hope that you take your nutrition more seriously as far as preparing for, you know, SHTF. You know, nutrition is critical. You know, if you don't have proper nutrition, you're just not going to make it. You know, you're not gonna make it. You're going to be weak. You're going to be tired, and you're not going to be able to protect. You're not going to be able to protect yourself. You're not going to be able to defend your family. So, you know, nutrition is critical. All right, guys. So I'll see you on the next one. I'll see you in part 4. Take care.